The target is believed to be Kirana Hills. This is located near Sargodha. Sargodha is a city in Pakistan's Punjab province. Now, reports say that these hills, the Kirana Hills, hold Pakistani nuclear weapons. We've got some videos from that area. You can clearly hear people say that Kirana has been hit. Take a look at this first.
किराना पहाड़ी ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਗੇ ਅਟੈਕ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਮਜ਼ਾਰ ਅਟੈਕ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹ ਦੂਜਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਅਟੈਕ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਮੁਸਲਸਲ ਅਟੈਕ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਕਿਰਾਨਾ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਤੋਂ ਦੋ ਅਟੈਕ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ ਦੋ ਮਿਜ਼ਾਈਲ ਫਾਇਰ ਹੋਏ ਅਭੀ
And cue the speculation. Experts wondered if India had struck a Pakistani nuclear site, specifically the entrance to the site. The timing is certainly suspect. Within hours of this attack, Pakistan sued for peace. The Americans also spoke about some alarming intel that they had received. Now, all of this added fuel to the fire. Some people were convinced that India had hit Kirana Hills. The Indian military was asked about this. The answer was a resounding no.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
He said it as clearly as possible, yet the rumors did not end. Yesterday, the issue reached the US State Department. They were asked a yes or no question. Has a US team gone to Pakistan over nuclear radiation fears? Has America sent a team to check nuclear radiation in Pakistan? That was the question. Listen to the answer.
Has US sent a team to Islamabad or Pakistan following the reports that there have been leaks of nuclear radiation in some of the secure Pakistani sites?
I have nothing to preview on that at this time.
They did not confirm or reject it. Now, add to that a mysterious Egyptian plane. It landed at a small airport north of Sargodha, and this happened recently. Reports say it was carrying boron to Pakistan. Now, boron is a chemical element. It is often used to suppress nuclear reactions. So, the speculation is that Pakistan is using boron to contain the fallout. Now, just to be clear, there is no official word on such a disaster, neither from India nor from Pakistan. Nonetheless, it's a story worth looking at because India has created a new doctrine against Pakistan, and in this doctrine, nuclear blackmail will not be accepted. Prime Minister Modi himself has made that clear.
कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा.
Both India and Pakistan have around 170 nuclear warheads each. India has a no first use policy, meaning we will only use nukes in response to a nuclear attack. We will not be the first ones to use or to fire a nuke. But Pakistan has a different policy. They have talked about using any weapon to defend themselves, perhaps even nuclear weapons. They do not rule it out. Until now, Pakistan has hid behind this nuclear shield. But as Prime Minister Modi said, it won't work anymore. Nuclear blackmail or not, India will strike back. Which brings us to Pakistan's arsenal. Their nukes are stored in a disassembled state. What does that mean? It means that the warhead is stored separate from the missile. So if you want to fire them, you'll have to assemble them first. You'll have to load the warhead on the missile. Now the question is, where are they stored? Across the country. Pakistan can fire nukes from the air and land, not from the sea yet. From the air, they can fire nuclear weapons using the Mirage planes. 4 bases in Pakistan are said to house the Mirages. The Minas base in Attock, the Rafiqi base in Shorkot, the Shahbaz base in Jacobabad, and the Masroor base near Karachi. These 4 bases have the Mirage jets. So logically, the nuclear warheads should be nearby, near these bases. Then you have land-based ballistic missiles like the Shaheen 2 and the Fateh 2. Reports say at least 5 bases in Pakistan could house these missiles: Gujranwala, Sargodha, Pano Akil, Khuzdar and Akro. Like we just told you, Sargodha is near Kirana Hills. So the question is, could India have struck this target? I don't think there is any doubt on the capability. Indian missiles were hitting Pakistani bases at will. They also created a runway at the Sargodha air base. So yes, we could have hit Kirana Hills if we wanted to. Whether we actually did or not is a different question. The Indian Army says we did not. And two factors would have guided this decision. Number one, the escalation. You see, striking air bases is one thing, but striking a nuclear site is a major escalation. And as the military said, that was never our intention. Operation Sindoor was non-escalatory from the word go. That's the first point. Factor number two, the fallout. Kirana Hills is just 170 kilometers from the Indian border. If there is an explosion, if there's a nuclear explosion there, would the fallout be limited to Pakistan? Or would it be felt across the border too, in India? New Delhi would have thought about it. Also, our forces have used their strength responsibly. Throughout this conflict, Pakistan targeted Indian civilians, but India made sure that Pakistani civilians did not become collateral damage. Plus, our forces have proven their ability to carry out precision strikes. So I repeat, had India wanted, it could have struck Pakistani nukes by first hitting the base near their nuclear command center and then hitting the mountains holding the nukes. It would have been the death blow. But India's denial has been categorical. So as things stand, there was no nuclear escalation. It's just one of those war stories that fuel intrigue and imagination. And thank God for it. We've told you a lot about Operation Sindoor, about how terror hubs in Pakistan were destroyed, how the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force were in the thick of action and the kind of damage that was dealt to Pakistan's air bases. But tonight, let me tell you about those who did not make the headlines. The ones who moved in silence, whose deployments were swift and strategic. This was the biggest mobilization since the 1971 war. I'm talking about the Indian Navy here. 36 warships, multiple submarines and one aircraft carrier. A formidable armada was deployed in the Arabian Sea. The Indian Navy was locked and loaded. They were ready to choke Pakistan's sea lanes. And this was not just a flex. This was a message to Pakistan. Call for a ceasefire or lose Karachi. The Indian Navy forced Pakistan to pick up the phone. Here's what we know. 36 Indian warships were deployed near Pakistan's coast. We have 125 warships. Out of these, 36 were deployed near Pakistan's coast. At the heart of it was the INS Vikrant. This is India's homemade aircraft carrier. 46,000 tons of steel and firepower, capable of launching fighter jets like the MiG-29K. The Vikrant is a fortress at sea. And it never moves alone. It was flanked by dozens of warships, like missile destroyers, stealth frigates and submarines, all of them armed to the teeth with lethal BrahMos missiles and silent torpedoes. Altogether, they're called the Carrier Battle Group. That's the Vikrant and its ships. Together, they make the Carrier Battle Group. And they were a few hundred kilometers away from Karachi, far enough to defend against incoming threats, but within range to take out Karachi's port, and that too in a matter of minutes. So this was no routine patrol. This was an open dare to Pakistan. Think twice before making a move or risk losing Karachi. The Indian Navy's Director of Operations issued the warning himself.
The Indian Navy's Carrier Battle Group, surface forces, submarines and aviation assets were immediately deployed at sea with full combat readiness. Our forces remained forward deployed in the Northern Arabian Sea in a dissuasive and deterrent posture with full readiness and capacity to strike select targets at sea and on land, including Karachi at time of our choosing.
Let me tell you why Karachi was on the radar. It is not just a port, it is Pakistan's lifeline. Karachi is the country's largest port. Other ports like Gwadar and Ormara are a fraction in size. More than 75% of Pakistan's trade is done through the Karachi port. At least 80% of their oil imports flow through here. A blockade or strike on Karachi port would have paralyzed the country. The Indian Navy knows this because they have done it before. In Operation Trident, during the 1971 war, back then India deployed 6 warships to cripple Karachi. They brought the port and the city to its knees. The Karachi port was on fire for 4 days in a row. That was in 1971. Let's fast forward to today. This time the scale was 6 times larger. 36 warships had their missiles aimed at Karachi. A quarter of India's naval fleet was ready for action. Pakistan's navy, with just 30 warships in total, was simply outgunned. They were confined to their harbors. They did not even dare to set sail into open waters. The Indian Navy's deployment was not just about numbers, it was a masterclass in power projection. Pakistan's Chinese anti-ship weapons, or so-called weapons, were silent. Their navy was left humbled. All of this without a single shot being fired. So what's the bigger picture? India is done with Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism. Pakistan's military is hand in glove with terrorists. So they too are fair game. Operation Sindoor may have been fought on land, but the Indian Navy's role is slowly emerging. They dominated the Arabian Sea, with INS Vikrant leading the pack. India owned the maritime front. It was a clear warning to Islamabad. Karachi's safety is in your hands, but the Indian Navy's terms and conditions apply. This was not about provocation, this was about posture, and a reminder that India is a naval force to reckon with. India's western border has been in the thick of conflict. Even after asking for a pause in fighting, Pakistan continues to fire the odd drone. This is on the western front, India's western front. And China sees this as an opportunity to provoke India on the eastern front. That's right, China has chosen this time to make another move. It is targeting Arunachal Pradesh again. It has issued a new list of names, where it has given Chinese names to Indian land. Now, this is a way to claim these territories as Chinese. The list has 27 locations, including 15 mountains, 5 residential areas, 4 mountain passes, 2 rivers and 1 lake. All Indian, but Beijing has given them Chinese names. Now, this is the 5th such list that China has issued. The first one came in 2017, close to the Galwan clash. In the last 8 years, China has renamed more than 80 locations in India. You could say this does not mean very much. These lists are only symbolic. Their names mean nothing really. And yet, it's a deliberate provocation. This is part of China's strategy of salami slicing, where you make incremental moves, seemingly minor moves, but their combined effect is major and significant. China claims the entire Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. They call it Zangnan, or South Tibet.
Zangnan is China's territory. The Chinese government standardizing the names of some places in Zangnan is completely within China's sovereign rights.
These lists are China's way of forcing a claim through repetition, through propaganda, through provocation. China's claims have no basis in history. They have no recognition from the international community. Arunachal Pradesh is an inalienable part of India. That is what the statement from India reiterated today. The Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement. It called China's move, and I'm quoting here, vain and preposterous. But the pattern is hard to miss. And look at the timing. It comes days after China armed Pakistan against India. Pakistan used Chinese weapons to attack India, like air-to-air missiles and fighter jets. And we've been telling you about this on the show, about how Chinese weapons failed. Last week's events prove that in case of a war, Pakistan will have a limitless supply of Chinese weapons. And that's not all. China is giving them a lot more than military support. It is also giving Pakistan diplomatic cover. At the United Nations, China is helping Pakistan protect a terrorist group. It's called the TRF, the Resistance Front. It is basically a proxy of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. They are behind the Pahalgam attack. India is well aware of this support. It knows that China and Pakistan are working together on the ground and in global forums. And India is challenging that at the United Nations. The response is taking shape in more ways than one. Chinese business deals are being closely scrutinized. Reports say Indian firms are slowing down their negotiations. These firms were planning deals with Chinese companies. Some of them are being reassessed. This includes joint ventures. Basically, India Inc. is being cautious. They want to see how the current situation plays out and how the Indian government engages with China moving forward. A few months ago, the sentiment was quite different. Last year, India and China disengaged in Ladakh. This was followed by a wave of positive statements from both sides. Chinese President Xi Jinping was out to woo India. He began talking about a dragon-elephant tango, where the dragon is China and the elephant is India, of course. And Prime Minister Modi too expressed hope for better ties. So doors were opening, more trade, more investment was on the cards. But China's actions have put a question mark on progress. It is raising a two-front threat for India. On the west, by arming Pakistan, and on the east, by claiming Indian land. This is all part of the same pressure campaign. So, of course, India is pushing back decisively on every front. Now, let's talk about the United States of America. Just a few months ago, it felt like India and Washington were finally marching in step. The world's oldest and largest democracies found a common cause, and that was China. Washington saw a rising India as a counterweight in Asia. India saw the US as a partner to diversify its military investments and to power a tech-driven future. The leaders smiled for cameras, joint drills got new names, and statements talked about shared values, about how this was a natural alliance of two democracies. But the thing is, alliances are not forged on press releases. Alliances are tested in difficult moments. And for Donald Trump, that test came last week. The test of the India-Pakistan conflict. So how did the US fare? Well, it's a difficult assessment, and there are three reasons for that. Number one, of course, is Donald Trump and his incessant statements about playing peacemaker. You see, the stoppage of fire came on May 10th. It was a decision made by India and Pakistan, yet it was Trump who announced a ceasefire. He jumped the gun, he announced a ceasefire. He said Washington had brokered it and that he used the leverage of trade to get both sides to stand down. India has rejected those claims. New Delhi says this was and is a bilateral conversation, but Trump doesn't seem to get the hint.
I just thought it was something we could get involved in, and I did a good job, Marco did a good job, and JD did a good job. We sort of were a team, and we, I think, convinced them to let's have peace and let's go and make trade deals. If we can make trade deals, we like that much better than nuclear weapons.
He mentioned it thrice just yesterday, not once, not twice, but 3 times, as if he couldn't resist, as if this was his favorite story to tell.
Just days ago, my administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan, and I used trade to a large extent to do it. I said, fellas, come on, let's make a deal. let's do some trading. Let's not trade nuclear missiles. Let's trade the things that you make so beautifully.
The story has all the classic Trump elements: the bargain, the bravado with Trump painted as the hero, and of course, the self-congratulatory twist.
Or maybe we can even get them together a little bit, Marco, where they go out and have a nice dinner together. Wouldn't that be nice?
But in India, the message landed differently. New Delhi is not looking for a dinner date with Pakistan. India has long maintained that this is a bilateral issue. No third wheeling here. Also, India and Pakistan are not the same. One is sponsoring terrorism, the other is countering it. So equating both these countries does not work. As for Trump's dinner invite, it was neither hilarious nor helpful. And the dinner invite is not America's only problem. Here's the second one. The IMF bailout for Pakistan. Amid this conflict, in the wake of the Pahalgam attack by Pakistani terrorists, the International Monetary Fund gave more money to Pakistan, more than $2 billion. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see a pattern here. A terrorist attack sparks an Indian retaliation. Pakistan rattles the nuclear saber. The West urges restraint, and then it promptly rewards Pakistan for starting the fire. The IMF insisted that the deal had been in the works for months, that it was finalized weeks ago. But the fact is, the final approval came at the peak of hostilities. And that is a major red flag, especially because the US could have blocked it. The US holds a veto-wielding majority in the IMF. It can veto IMF decisions and loans, but it has allowed 24 bailouts for Pakistan. This is the highest number for any country anywhere in the world at any point in history, the highest ever, 24 bailouts for Pakistan. This is not economic aid, this is strategic enabling. Why is the US rewarding Pakistan for exporting terrorism? That's the second red flag. And the third one is this: delays in the supply of military equipment to India. We signed a deal in 2021, a deal between India's Defence Ministry and a company called HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. This was a 48,000 crore rupee deal for the procurement of 83 Tejas jets. Now for this, the engines were to come from the US. From an American company called GE Aerospace, they signed a contract to deliver 99 jet engines. The deliveries were scheduled to begin in March 2023. They did not. For 2 years, India waited. HAL did not have engines, so it could not deliver the Tejas jets to the Indian Air Force. Finally, the deliveries began only this March after a 2-year delay, just weeks ahead of the conflict. So where does that leave the India-US relationship? Now, to be clear, this is not a crack in ties. On paper, India and the US are still strategic partners. We are collaborating on defense and on technology. We have common interests vis-a-vis China. All of that stands. Washington is still a preferred partner, but it cannot be presumed to be a reliable one. Because in diplomacy, as in life, it's not what you say, it is what you do that defines the relationship.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
That was a fantastic discussion going on there, and I wish I could have joined you because it was really, really insightful. But we're joined by Lauren Dagan-Amos, who's in India specialist. She's a foreign policy expert. Thank you very much for joining me. There are many, Ms. Amos, there are many who are saying that if India was in such a strong position against Pakistan, why did it agree to what is effectively a ceasefire without preconditions? That is what is being said here in our country. First, what is your assessment of the Indian military action and its subsequent decision to agree to an understanding, so to speak, that has led to a ceasefire?
So thank you so much for having me here. It's a complex answer, but it's very straight. I don't think that India went to case fire without agreements, without conditions. Okay, as you can see, this crisis, it's not the usual crisis between India and Pakistan. It's a strategic shift that India did in the foreign policy, in the strategy, defense policy. India responds not only with military efforts, but with a clear message. Terrorism will no longer be treated in a separate issue. It's an act of war, and it's very important. It's this very big shift in the foreign policy and defense policy that Narendra Modi brought to India. Even now, we can see in the de-escalation, India is showing that it's not a weakness; it is strength. On India terms, I think India went from this crisis very strong, actually.
Very strong. Well, there is a lobby here that says that India should have signed a formal, they should have dragged Pakistan to the table and signed a formal ceasefire agreement in writing. How realistic and responsible is this observation?
I think that if India wants to be a responsible country, which is, she needs to do something with the Sindoor agreement and the Shimla agreement. It's very important because these agreements was the basic talking with India and Pakistan during a crisis time. And it's very important that you should go back to the table, and you will see what can you bring now, which kind of new agreements about the Indus agreement and Shimla agreement. So before the ceasefire, I think these two agreements are very important.
My final question, do you see parallels between India
We've told you why the US can be unreliable. Now let me tell you about their media. They are living in a dream world of their own. Their coverage of Operation Sindoor has been nothing but biased. For days, they were headlining that Indian jets were shot down. Their target of choice is the Rafale. The Indian side has neither confirmed nor denied these reports, but the American media pushed it, quoting unnamed US and French officials and random Pakistani sources. Why would they do it? To paint the Rafale, the French-made Rafale, in a negative light and to show that American jets are better. So we say it's time for a reality check. Let's see how good the American jets are. The US spends close to $1 trillion on defense every year. You heard that right, $1 trillion every year on defense. It boasts of the most powerful navy, the most stealthy fighter jets, and the most advanced drones. Yet look at how they perform. A rebel group in Yemen is giving them a run for their money. I'm talking about the Houthis of Yemen. They have done what most militaries failed to do for decades. They have exposed how vulnerable the US military is. To understand how, let me tell you about what's happening in the Red Sea. The world's most expensive jet, the F-35, was nearly shot down. Not by sophisticated air defense systems like the S-400, but by cheap anti-aircraft missiles used by the Houthis. And American officials have confirmed this. They have confirmed that one F-35 stealth jet almost got hit. It barely made it back to the base. The Americans say the F-35 is the stealthiest jet in the world. They claim even advanced radars cannot detect it. But guess what? The Houthis could see it. This is the same jet that the US is desperate to sell to India. And this was not an isolated incident. Even the F-16 is struggling. It's another jet that the US is trying to sell to India, but even the F-16 was almost shot down by the Houthis. Again, this has been confirmed by US officials. But America's newsrooms are silent. They're busy looking for Indian jets. They can't see their own jets struggling against the Houthis. Think about it. F-35 stealth jets nearly struck. F-16 jets barely making it back to the base, and the headlines, complete radio silence. But it gets worse. America's war against the Houthis has been a costly affair. The US Navy has lost 3 fighter jets till now. These were the F-18 Super Hornets. They've lost 3 of them, F-18. Each aircraft cost $70 million. Do you know how these jets were lost? One was shot down in friendly fire. An American warship mistook it for a Houthi drone, so they shot down their own jet. This is the world's most advanced navy for you. So that's one jet down. What about the other 2? They fell into the Red Sea. I'm not making this up. The American jets just fell into the Red Sea. They're somewhere at the bottom of the ocean. How did that happen? How did the jets fall? Pure brilliance. The US aircraft carrier Harry Truman was targeted by the Houthis. It tried to evade the incoming missiles with a sharp turn, and one F-18 Super Hornet fell overboard. This happened twice. The aircraft carrier turns and a jet just slips into the sea. Like I said, pure brilliance. Maybe the American media does not know about it. They're so busy focusing on India. Now we look at the MQ-9 Reaper. This is America's premium drone, also the costliest toy in the world. Each drone is worth $30 million. The Houthis have shot down 15 of these drones. So combine the jets and the drones, and the US has lost more than $700 million in equipment. Their so-called cutting-edge weapons are being cut to size by the Houthis. The Pentagon has called it costly but sustainable. But their actions say otherwise. Last week, Donald Trump said that they will stop bombing the Houthis. He said the Houthis wanted to make a deal. Listen to this.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that, and we will stop the bombings.
Trump said the Houthis did not want to fight, and he said that on the 6th of May. But the very next day, the Houthis launched an attack, and they targeted the USS Harry Truman in the Red Sea.
The naval and UAV forces of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a specific military operation targeting the U.S. aircraft carrier Truman and a number of its warships in the northern Red Sea with a ballistic missile and several drones.
So who was desperate for a deal? Was it the Houthis or was it the Americans? Let me leave you with a thought. The US claims it has the best military in the world, from stealth jets to advanced drones. They have it all. At least on paper, they have all of it. But combat is a reality check. Even the most stealthy jet like the F-35 is vulnerable. Costly jets and drones can be shot down. This is part of war. The only difference is this. India hit 9 air bases deep inside Pakistan. India became the first country to conduct airstrikes on a nuclear-armed nation. Contrast that with the US. They're struggling to keep their planes safe from a ragtag guerrilla force. The US media can try and spin the truth, but how long will they hide their losses? After every Indian operation would come the inevitable question, how did our military perform? Did our military work together? Was there synergy between the Air Force, the Navy and the Army? Well, no doubt this time. The answer is a clear yes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself talked about it. He said the synergy was remarkable.
इस दौरान हमारी सेनाओं का कोऑर्डिनेशन वाकई में कहूंगा शानदार था। आर्मी हो, नेवी हो या एयरफोर्स, सबका तालमेल बहुत जबरदस्त था। नेवी ने समुद्र पर अपना दबदबा बनाया, सेना ने बॉर्डर पर मजबूती दी और भारतीय वायुसेना ने अटैक भी किया और डिफेंड भी किया.
The military is also projecting this. Today, the service chiefs attended a special event. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi, Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh Tripathi and Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh. All four of them attended this event on Operation Sindoor. They gave insights on tri-service synergy. Basically, how the Army, Navy and Air Force coordinated well. The military says there was an exceptional degree of jointness and integration. Now, why is this important? And how did India achieve it? In the past, many experts have flagged this issue, that India's three services do not coordinate too well. The war in 1962 with China, the war in 1965 against Pakistan, India's peacekeeping mission in Sri Lanka, all of these were hampered by lack of synergy. You see, India does not have integrated commands. Our Navy, Army and Air Force operate under different leaderships. And that's not the case in foreign militaries. They create single commands with naval, air and land assets. The idea is to create more jointness. India still does not have those commands. But we began correcting some of the mistakes in Kargil. A committee in 2001 recommended the creation of a CDS, Chief of Defence Staff, CDS, essentially a tri-service chief for the Indian military. This post was officially created in late 2019. Currently, General Anil Chauhan is India's CDS. Operation Sindoor was the first major mission of the CDS era, and safe to say, the synergy was great. Just look at the air defences. It was a tango between the Army and the Air Force. The Air Force has a command system. It is called the IACCS, the Integrated Air Command and Control System. Think of it as the Air Force's defensive war room. The Army has its own. It is called the Akash Tir. Both these systems had to work together. In fact, the military is trying to integrate both of them. Last week, they combined to create multiple layers of defense. Closer to ground, you had air defense guns and portable missiles. They were operated by the Indian Army. As you move higher up, the Air Force takes over. They have long-range missiles, they have drones, and they have fighter aircraft, all capable of taking out incoming projectiles. You may have seen the drone swarms over Jammu and Kashmir. Those were most likely shot down by the Army. But the missiles and fighter jets, they were certainly engaged by the Air Force. All of this happened seamlessly over the border regions. It tells you how synergized the two services were. Same with intelligence agencies. Look how precise the strikes on May 7th were. No civilian casualties, no military casualties, only the terror camps were hit. This shows how good the intelligence was. They led our forces to the exact targets. Even India's Space Research Organization, or ISRO, was on the job. 10 of their satellites were monitoring India's frontiers. Again, it's an example of synergy. Any cross-border operation requires such cooperation. You need precise intel, you need seamless communication, you need integrated plans. In this case, India's military displayed all of that. Of course, we don't have the full operational details yet. Chances are they will further prove this case. Tensions have eased a bit, but the border areas of Jammu and Kashmir have residents who are still on edge, and understandably so. India says Operation Sindoor is still on, and we are boosting our preparedness for the evolving threats. A big part of that plan is bunkers. India is building bunkers. Over the years, we've built about 10,000 bunkers. These are in the border areas of Jammu and Kashmir. But for years, they were largely forgotten. Last week, when Pakistan targeted Indian civilians, those same bunkers saved lives. So it makes sense to build more. There is an increased focus on defense exercises and medical trainings in border villages as well. Here's our report.
When Pakistani shells fell in Jammu and Kashmir's densely populated areas, they damaged civilian infrastructure and forced families to flee their homes and take refuge in bunkers that were once forgotten.
बॉर्डर में इस वक्त ये चीज है कि कहीं ना कहीं जिन जो पुराने जो बनाए गए थे बंकर, उन बंकरों से लोग दूर भाग गए थे, अब बंकरों का पता भी नहीं था, लेकिन अब फिर से साफ सफाई चल रही है, फिर से एक डर चल रहा है.
Over the years, amid the fragility of peace, about 10,000 bunkers were constructed along the India-Pakistan border in Jammu and Kashmir. They saved many lives during Pakistan's brutal attacks, and now residents are cleaning and maintaining them once again.
तो ये गवर्नमेंट ने हमें बंकर दिया है, इसके हमें बहुत बड़े फायदे हैं. पहले भी शेलिंग होती थी, यहाँ ये बॉर्डर का एरिया है तो उसमें हम रहते थे, लेकिन हमें आज भी हमने जब से ये हम घटना हुई है उसके बाद हमने अपने मोर्चों को तैयार कर लिया है, बिस्तर वगैरह डाल दिए हैं. जब भी कोई ऐसी किस्म का कोई होगा तो हमें इसमें अपने बच्चों को और पड़ोस वाले दाएं बाएं जो मिल के रह सकते हैं.
Meanwhile, the government is amping up preparedness. Ministers are inspecting the bunkers in places like Rajouri, Poonch, Baramulla and Kupwara, which were among the worst hit during Islamabad's attacks. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah has called the bunkers a lifeline during moments of crisis. He wants more bunkers to be built, especially in vulnerable areas. This includes both community and individual bunkers.
Community bunker बने थे, लेकिन बहुत अरसे से उनकी ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ी. नए बंकर काफ़ी सालों से बने नहीं हैं. यहाँ जहाँ मैं गया लोकल लोगों के तरफ से एक बात ज़रूर आई कि हमें इंडिविजुअल बंकर्स जो हैं वो बनाने चाहिए. इसके लिए गवर्नमेंट एक पॉलिसी इख्तियार करके जो भी हमें करना होगा इन इलाकों में, खासकर जो सरहद और LOC के करीब लोग रहते हैं उनके लिए बंकर्स वगैरह का, उसके लिए हम एक स्कीम कायम करके फिर मरकजी हुकूमत से भी बात करेंगे.
Community bunkers have the capacity to shelter anywhere from a dozen to more than 100 people. On the other hand, individual bunkers are family specific with easy access. Over the past decade, the government has facilitated the construction of both. However, in some border areas like Rajouri and Poonch, such initiatives were limited because they previously remained largely untouched by Pakistani shelling during periods of tension. Firing was traditionally confined to forward border villages, but the latest shelling is a shift in pattern. Pakistan has brazenly targeted heavily populated areas. Their mortar shells have landed inside people's homes. So officials are boosting the construction of community bunkers in areas like Rajouri and Poonch. Many things will be taken into consideration, including how much shelling a structure can withstand, how much time it takes for people to reach it, ventilation, habitability by several people for longer stays, and an entrance location in a shadow area, meaning a tactically obscured area. But in areas where community bunkers are not feasible in strategic locations, the government is building individual bunkers to offer quick access to protection during emergencies. Apart from bunkers, village defence guards are being bolstered as well. They are civilians and former defence and police personnel in the border regions of Jammu and Kashmir. Over the years, they have received trainings and arms to defend communities in case of emergencies. Now, they are holding regular exercises. Apart from this, the Army, Red Cross and the All India Institute of Medical Sciences or AIIMS have been holding first aid training sessions with residents along the border regions. So, as a new kind of normalcy sets in, residents remain on edge. But with bunkers and trainings, India is acting with resilience and preparedness.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
That was a fantastic discussion going on there, and I wish I could have joined you because it was really, really insightful. But we're joined by Lauren Dagan Amos, who's in India specialist. She's a foreign policy expert. Thank you very much for joining me. There are many, Ms. Amos, there are many who are saying that if India was in such a strong position against Pakistan, why did it agree to what is effectively a ceasefire without preconditions? That is what is being said here in our country. First, what is your assessment of the Indian military action and its subsequent decision to agree to an understanding, so to speak, that has led to a ceasefire?
So thank you so much for having me here. It's a complex answer, but it's very straight. I don't think that India went to ceasefire without agreements, without conditions. Okay, as you can see, this crisis, it's not the usual crisis between India and Pakistan. It's a strategic shift that India did in the foreign policy, in the strategy, defense policy. India responds not only with military efforts, but with a clear message. Terrorism will no longer be treated in a separate issue. It's an act of war, and it's very important. It's this very big shift in the foreign policy and defense policy that Narendra Modi brought to India. Even now, we can see in the de-escalation, India is showing that it's not a weakness; it is strength. On India terms, I think India went from this crisis very strong, actually.
Very strong. Well, there is a lobby here that says that India should have signed a formal, they should have dragged Pakistan to the table and signed a formal ceasefire agreement in writing. How realistic and responsible is this observation?
I think that if India wants to be a responsible country, which is, she needs to do something with the Sindoor agreement and the Shimla agreement. It's very important because this agreement was the basic talking with India and Pakistan during a crisis time. And it's very important that you should go back to the table, and you will see what can you bring now, which kind of new agreements about the Indus agreement and Shimla agreement. So before the ceasefire, I think these two agreements are very important.
My final question, do you see parallels between India's action after Pahalgam attack and what Israel did after October 7?
I think that India and Israel, not for the first time, are dealing with the extreme radicalism, Islamic. And I think India and Israel should do a deeper relationship in the security issues and the policy issues and the economy issues, because they are dealing with the same threats. October 7, it's
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. India honors the Indian Armed Forces with the Tiranga Yatra. Tesla Cybertrucks escort Donald Trump's motorcade in Doha, and drone footage shows the demolition of an iconic hotel in New Jersey. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1948, the State of Israel was founded. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine. It was divided into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Arab states rejected the move, but Israel went ahead with it. In 1948, David Ben-Gurion proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
At the first, the extraordinary session on the strife-torn Holy Land involving the British Jews and Arabs was requested by Great Britain.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where India continues the offensive against Pakistan, this time on the diplomatic stage against the terror state in wake of Operation Sindoor. India will now submit evidence before the United Nations Security Council against the TRF, an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, in connection to the Pahalgam terror attack. Government sources say an Indian technical team is currently in New York. They are interacting today with the monitoring team of the Sanctions Committee and other partner countries at the United Nations Security Council. That is the big piece of news that's coming in when it comes to India's diplomatic offensive against the terror state, against Pakistan, where now what we are learning is that the United Nations Security Council will be moved by the Indian government as it gives evidence against the TRF and the Lashkar-e-Taiba when it comes to the Pahalgam terror attack. So this is another offensive against Pakistan in the wake of Operation Sindoor, where India crippled the entire terror infrastructure inside Pakistan and even gave a decisive blow to the Pakistani military infrastructure, which aided the entire terror state. I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant Mishra on the broadcast to get more details on India's offensive at the United Nations. Siddhant, over to you.
That's right, Ayushman. In fact, to the best of our understanding, then the technical team is already in New York, and this team is going to brief UNSC 126 Sanctions Committee. Perhaps we'll be briefing them on a TRF link with Lashkar-e-Taiba, and they might also give evidence of TRF involvement in Pahalgam attack. In fact, Ayushman, before this, twice India has given evidence to United Nations Sanctions Committee about how TRF is doing proxy warfare on behalf of Lashkar-e-Taiba in Jammu and Kashmir. And in fact, yesterday at a press briefing and before this, Foreign Secretary himself, spoke about TRF's involvement in Pahalgam terror attack and how India had provided evidence to 1267 Sanctions Committee of United Nations in the past as well. Now, what we are getting from sources is, and sources tell us that an Indian technical team is in New York. They are interacting today with the monitoring team of the 1267 Sanctions Committee and other partner countries in the United Nations. They will also be meeting with the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism and Counterterrorism Committee Executive Directorate. So this is perhaps the first move of India against TRF after Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, this was announced by spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal yesterday in a press briefing, and today we are getting to know the technical team is already in New York.
Right, and Siddhant, at the same time, a lot of diplomatic parley is also underway currently in New York to get all the partners on one side, because we've seen several nations also, not just at the United Nations Security Council, but even in the General Assembly, trying to take a very balanced approach, leaning towards the Pakistani narrative surrounding the Pahalgam terror attack.
But yes, definitely it is going to be a fight for India, Ayushman, given Pakistan is a non-permanent member of United Nations Security Council. And in fact, if you remember on 25th April's statement, if we go by that, despite not being the non-permanent member, Ayushman, India got the statement which India wanted. Perhaps, on the context of that particular statement only, Operation Sindoor was planned and executed. In fact, that was said by a Foreign Secretary. So, despite not being the part, speaking to friends and partner countries like